Now, if you want to take the advice from Neil Ma and go purchase yourself one of these Alienware laptops and get yourself, or even Alienware PCs as well, and get yourself off of your pathetic laptop, maybe your pathetic desktop, and get the top of the line gear, go over to Alienware or SmiteGame.com/Alienware and use code AWSmite09 to get yourself a nice discount and see what other great offers that Alienware has for you. The pros, us here on the desk, and our production are all using the top of the line equipment in order to perform our daily task, play our games of Smite, and anything more that might be needed around the office or even just at home if you want to watch a bunch of videos, a bunch of streams, whatever it may be. All of that and more can be done with those Alienware machines. So thank you so much to Alienware for coming back in Season 9 of the Smite Pro League and continuing to power us in this league. I'm J-Mac. I've got Trelly joining me on the desk for this one. We jump into our second set of the day. The Jade Dragons found their victory early on. Now we move into another battle of kind of the top and the bottom of the league. Camelot Kings came in second place during the Masters in rounding out their Phase 2. Valhalla Valkyries were still sitting on the lower end of that of all of that during throughout. Still came in around that 8th seed. But now they're going to be squaring off once again today here, Trelly.
Yeah, I was talking to Dave just previously on the desk about what I want to see from the Valkyries, because for a while the conversation was, they need to get prepared for Worlds. That's their plan, right? They need to, get as much experience as they can, gain some knowledge, and then look for that. I'm looking to see that those late game team fights improve, still that scrappy earliness that they've brung, and hopefully that's what they bring for us today.
It's been a long break for both of these teams in the competitive aspect of it. We'll take a look at the schedule to see what all you've missed so far coming through the weekend and what more is to still be expected. If you missed our set earlier on, as I said, Jade Dragons against Solar Scarabs. That was a 2-0 for the Dragons. Now we jump into the Kings and the Valkyries. And then tomorrow, definitely make sure you're still sticking around. Leviathans and Titans, Bolts, Scarabs, and Dragons Kings. A finals rematch from the Smite Summer Masters will be our last set of the entire weekend. So definitely make sure that you are tuning in for the remainder of our weekend. We got some great Smite ahead of you guys. But jumping into this set, and I think you're right to start talking about the Valkyries, because when we came into this season, the Valkyries are a team we're going, how long is it going to take these guys to get their footing? How long is it going to take for this team to grow? Is it going to be a phase? Is it going to be 2 phases? Will we really see much out of the Valkyries, at least as far as the first year for this team goes? And I would say that so far, we've seen a lot of glimmers of hope with this team so far.
For sure.
They've been able to take down the Leviathans a couple of times. They found success over the Camelot Kings. They've been able to make it through kind of the qualification knockout rounds of both of our Masters events. So the Valkyries have definitely shown that improvement. It's just been a little bit of a lack of consistency so far, Charlie, that we've been missing from this team.
Yeah, I think consistency is the right word. Like we said, they can find those early ganks. They can find gold leads. That's never been the issue. It's always been, translating that into those fire giant fights and those sieges towards late game. But, another thing that we have already highlighted is the fact that they have been looking more and more solid every single phase. So phase 3, this is the road to Worlds. This is the time where they got to leave it all on the table. And I really do think if they've continued to improve at the rate of which we've been able to watch, then we should be in for an explosive Phase 3 here for the Valks.
Yeah, the Valkyries have been doing nothing but improving. I believe Phase 1 only found 1 set win. Phase 2 found a couple of set wins. I mean, if we're on that trend, at least maybe 3 set wins ahead for this team. Remember, they got to go through 2 rounds of round robin up against everybody, so they're going to have 14 matchups total throughout the entirety of this phase before we start moving in and down the road towards Worlds and qualifications. And so far, if the level of improvement is continuing to move up for this Valkyries team, I'm expecting some great things from them in this phase, and even some great things against some of the mid-pack. Even, as I said before, they've been able to take games off of some of the top teams. Could see some sparks flying with this team, Trelly.
Yeah, no doubt. Their work is certainly cut out for them because the Camelot Kings, we got to sit down with them on Content Day on Wednesday. I got to, pick Captain Twig's brain in particular because we did a jungle tier list, and I seriously wanted to gauge, what sort of meta changes are to come, because it's day number 2 now. We have seen some different styles of bans here and there, but largely similar as well from last phase. So, you have to adapt to, are we playing a different style of Smite? Are we going to adhere to our own style, or are we sort of letting these meta picks like the Hades, for example, that we've seen come through? Is that going to be something that we can, itch into our strategies?
Well, the good news is we haven't talked to the Valkyries in a while, but the good news of that is that we can go over to Dolson, who's standing by with the Valkyries right now for a pregame interview.
That's right. Thanks, fellas. Down here in the booth with the Valhalla Valkyries prior to their first match of the phase. Wowie, I'm going to start with you. So we've talked a lot going into this phase. The implications a bit different, right? Early on in the year, you're playing for Phase 1 playoffs, Phase 2 playoffs. Now Worlds, Phase 3 playoffs feeding into Worlds, things like that. Do you feel like there's a different emphasis on all the individual SPL matches this phase, or does it feel like more of the same for you guys?
I think inherently it's just more important. Yeah, it just is more important. It's the best split, so.
Higher tier Smite. Gamma, I'll move over to you. I have 2 questions for you. Question number 1. Some changes over in the dual lane. Scepter's back. How's the meta feeling? Different from Phase 2? How different do you expect this lane to play compared to what we've seen throughout the rest of the year?
I mean, there are definitely a lot of changes for support with spikes and everything, all those new items. I don't think it's going to change too much as in terms of what gods are good, but there's definitely some differences.
Second question. Everyone was trying to avoid the interview here. I'm going to let you choose one of the 3 teammates for me to walk down towards and ask the next question to.
Well, you already know who I'm going to pick. It's going to be Aqua.
I'm going all the way down to Aqua?
We're throwing it all the way back.
All right, you heard it here first. Aquarius. Wait, well, let me ask you, why Aqua?
I can't remember the last time he's done an interview.
Fair enough. So we will go down to Aqua. In Aqua, the solo lane meta has looked a little interesting here today. I've heard you guys chattering about it. Is Hades the pick? Is that it, atop the solo lane meta, or is there some debate about what god pick is really the best over there?
I'm not really sure yet, because I mean, Final Kate looked really good on it, but that's why I was like, oh, that looks pretty good.
It does look pretty good. One final question. Do you want me to wrap up the interview, or one of these 2, should they get one final question from me?
We're good. I'll save my teammates.
Aquarius, always a team player. That's been the Valhalla Valkyries. We'll head back to the desk and get this one started.
Team player Aquarius saving the rest of his team from any further interviews and questions out there. Thank you so much, Dave, for talking to the Valkyries. It's been a while since we've gotten to see these guys in action, obviously all the way back towards Phase 2. Masters is really the last time we got to see a lot of competitive action between these players. A lot of change has been made up over to the dual lane. That was something that at least Gamma was highlighting there in that interview with Dave. So we'll see how kind of that support matchup goes there, and what is support and dual lane in general that they have to match up against. The Camelot Kings on the opposite side, Genetics and Netroid, have been known to really be pioneers in that dual lane, whether it be the picks they're going for, the strategies that they implement. And now with this Interceptor being thrown back into that lane, removing a couple of the neutral camps to make it into the one merged one, this dual lane has been so highly contentious for these teams.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to touch on real quick the fact that Aqua was saying he was saving them for an interview. Anytime you get a chance to talk to Dave is a blessing. So that's not,
That is
they were
very
not
true.
being saved. I just want to throw that out there. They're not, it's a good time. But however, the duo lane from the Camelot Kings has been, the talk has always been like Genetics has been this big brain for the team, a big mind, we'll call it, for the squad, just being able to come up with so many different strategies for them and being one of the key shot callers on this roster. But Netroid has, in my mind, been one of the pictures of consistency for this squad, right? Playing things like the Chiron, not afraid to go to those mage ADCs that we've been seeing come back to fruition as well, and always being extremely consistent. Maybe not having these pop-off games all the time, but that's not really what you need from your ADC more often than not when the rest of the team is playing so crisp. You just say, hey, get to like level 20-ish era where you got some prod shred, come shred some tanks for us, come do some objectives for us, and then hit the Phoenix. Like, that's what you want from your carry in a meta like this, and I think Netroid does that pretty much every single game.
Now, there is one pick specifically that comes to mind when I'm thinking the Camelot Kings. And one of the things that at least Gamma highlighted during his interview was the introduction of these new items, the Manticore Spikes, the Fabless Hoops. There's one pick that comes to mind for Genetics specifically that seems like it would synergize really well there, which would be that Horus pick. Do you think that might be something that we could see come from the Camelot Kings or maybe from more teams in the future here, Trelly?
It really just depends on if Genetics wants to reveal those strats this early on, right? I think maybe the Camelot Kings are looking confident enough to say we don't have to bring that out if we don't need to. We can save that for Worlds perhaps because we're confident we're going to be placing in that higher epsilon regardless. But yeah, the Horus, as you said, does proc the earrings quite well. It does bring incredible pressure. The only issue is then you are losing a little bit of magical damage later on, but Variety can always just pivot into a Guardian if need be. You can throw some magical ADCs in there. There's just so many strategies that the Camelot Kings can and have employed in the past that you never really know what to expect from them.
Yeah, you never know what's cooking up for the Camelot Kings between
What
the
are
mind
they
of
cooking?
Well, yeah, what's in the kitchen for the Camelot Kings? What ingredients are they throwing together to make this meal? We're gonna jump into game number 1 of Picks and Pans at the very least to see what some of those ingredients are that the Camelot Kings are stirring together. Up against the Valkyries, they've got the first pick and first ban immediately out. Absolutely no surprise. Umoja
Where's
has
Gamma's
been
flannel?
What?
Gamma's not wearing the flannel.
They haven't worn the flannel in so
But
long.
Wowie's wearing the flannel. I thought it was always when one wears it, the other wears it. It's
You know what? That's a good point.
It's either no one wears the flannel or they both wear the flannel. It's never one or the other.
And the only other person who does wear the flannel of any kind in the league is Stewart as well.
So I'm
There's
just
something between the carries. That,
I'm just
that,
a little worried that their synergy might be off. Like it's gonna be like I'm gonna go for a pluck and wow, he just misses the CC
also
after the fact,
they're
or
also
vice
not wearing
versa.
the beads anymore. At one point, they had the matching beads for all of the teammates, but I don't think I see them anywhere.
Maybe the Valks are trying something new. They're saying, hey, Wowie's going to wear the
Every
flannel.
phase.
It's phase 3. Wowie wears the flannels. Gamma wears just the jersey, and that's going to be a new look at that duo lane.
The nice new jerseys as well. Make sure to pick those ones up anytime that you get the opportunity to do so. Every single one of these teams' new jerseys look so great. But jumping back into the game and the bans, Umoja Naja taken away by the Valhalla Valkyries. And Cabrakan Hades banned by the King. So Aqua maybe a little unsure of if that Hades was the top of those charts, that gotta pick, that kind of god over for solo lane. Camelot Kings don't want anything to do with it. And I'm in the same mindset as them. I'm kind of tired of fighting all these Hades solos, running these Bancross claws, making a wreck of the solo lane, especially when I'm playing gods like Nike, and it's just not fun ever.
Yeah, anyone that has like a channeled ability, like a Cerberus or a Nike, for
just don't
example,
exist.
you don't get to clear the wave, and then Hades insta clears, and he can just invade your buff, one shot your blue buff after the fact. It's just a laning phase that you do not want to deal with. Speaking of things you don't want to deal with, the Valkyries do not want Netroid to get his hands on that Chirona pick that he has been extremely prominent on in the late game, just chunking you from halfway across the map with that Centaurus. The full red items build, Mace Tree did get a bit of a buff, and it would just look even better at this point. So I think the Valks did do their homework there, and they don't want to deal with that. And now that does leave open a few of the top picks from yesterday. Like Guan Yu, for example, those Fey Blessed hoops have been extremely prominent. The Mojo got taken away, but that means those healers, like Guan Yu, still gets through.
With the Ymir banned away by the Camelot Kings, that was something that was being ran in the dual lane pretty heavily, at least in day number 1 of our third phase. Muzin Cobb will be the next pickup. That's their first pick, at least for the Camelot Kings, and couple that with the Kepri, who still seems to be running amok, at least amongst the tops. Though we haven't been seeing as much ban priority towards this god. It feels like in phase 2 and moving in towards Masters, this was a god who was being dominated, at least was a dominant pick or a dominant ban immediately out. You're top 3ing this god in whichever instance. Now I'm not seeing quite as much priority, Charlie. Any reason that we might be kind of seeing that fall of Kepri-ness?
I think the rise of Ymir has been the reasoning for it, because it's just been so much first ban for Ymir. Anytime he gets through, it's usually looked at, and you can't afford to ban Umoja, Ymir, and the Kepri. That's got to be the mindset. Not like Kepri's bad. I don't think that's ever going to be the case with that ultimate. It's just there are other supports that you have to make sure are getting rid of first. In this case, the Valks just said, hey, we're going to make sure that Umoja's gone, that Naja's gone, and then we can deal with the Ymir later on, which then made sure the Kings ban it. But that means a Nox is going to be get through. More often than not, that Nox does go to the support role. It's the Valks, though. It's Benny Q. At this point, any one of those picks could be going to mid, so I'm not going to, stamp one just yet. We'll have to see how it goes out. But the Kings are hovering that Discordia, one of the top mid laners, mostly just for that passive. Give it to someone who's got top damage and let them continue being a menace. But if that does get booed, that means that AMC could be going over to that duo lane.
Yeah, continue to feed the hot hand more than anything when you get a pick like that. Now, I'm just going to say this. The Valkyries have already drafted 2 of the 3 gods who have a cavalry of some kind. You have Guan Yu, jumps on his horse with an ultimate. Lancelot can do that a little bit more often.
True.
They got to lock the Hachiman in, complete the trifecta of the horse. Well, I guess they can't grab the Chiron to have all 4 technically for horse-based characters, but they can at least get the 3.
How many horsemen of the apocalypse is it? Is it
4?
4? Okay.
So with Chiron, you can have the 4th horseman of the apocalypse.
Or you could just get the Morgan, and then you have...
And you can have 5.
Wow.
Oh, man. So you're doubling up on one of them.
That is true. I guess it would just be a repeat of one of the horses. So that could be something that we look at
maybe down the line
later on. But now we have to look at picks and bans. Vulcan taking a ban, a pick that has been relatively popular off of 1 day of play thus far. Well, 2 days total at this point. We're at 1.5. We'll call it that. So Vulcan is taking that ban, as well as the Cupid, a pick that I don't think ever is going to be falling off. As long as the attack speed build, the kin size, like Odibo, that sort of style of play is always in point. And as long as Fields of Love is getting as much value as it does, probably going to be a smart ban here throughout. And remember, that Discordia was not a Discordia. It actually turned into a Cerberus. So now we got double Guardian AMC. Could look at a double Guardian Hunter composition, double Hunter rather, composition for the Camelot Kings. And that will cement their late game as pretty much the best they need for a draft like this.
With the Ratatosker and Artemis banned away by the Valkyries, taking a pick at least away from Captain Twig in the jungle, taking a little bit away from Netroid, potentially at least over in that dual lane with those two. Option back to the Camelot Kings, as you mentioned, the double Guardian, so support and solo locked in. AMC, still flexible, whether that one does go over to Netroid or to BMT in that mid lane. And then Captain Twig might be holding on to that jungle pick till the end, kind of get a look at the draft, figure out maybe where this Nox is going with the Guan Yu and the Lancelot. Probably safe to assume that we have the solo jungle mixed up there. Though I would be missed if I didn't mention the fact that there has been potential Guan Yu support in the past. So a lot of options available to the Valkyries. This Nox still kind of holding a bit of a wild card, but not much of a wild card. A pick that Captain Twig loves to go to whenever he needs it. Hun Bats, the jungler now for the Camelot Kings.
Yeah, I think a very smart draft here from the Kings. They've got decent single target damage there in AMC. They have the res from Khepri, which is always going to bring a ton to the team. And then you've got Stingy and Torment and Fear No Evil. Big circles, big CC tools. They're pretty much checking every box for like a solid SMITE composition in the Pro League. The only thing I think they're missing here is a little bit of early presence. Hunbots does take a bit to come online. You're going to be up against, I can only assume, the Lancelot in that jungle, which does bring a ton of early presence once he gets access towards that horse. Just more abilities, more damage, that sort of thing. And now we are going to see the full draft here. So it looks like, you know, for my money, Lance in the jungle, that Nox will be going support, and then Guan Yu in the solo lane. But as you highlighted, there could be some swipping around here. Betty Q could play any one of those gods, any five, and he can probably make it work to some extent. But the Camelot Kings, they're going for that more traditional draft. They do have BMT on the AMC in the mid lane, and then just saying that, you're going to play the Ho Yi. You got some 1v1 potential, but also you just get to have the Suns, which is a pretty good team fight ultimate as well. We got big circles, and that's what we're looking for.
So big circles,
Yep.
a lot of them over on the side of Camelot Kings. No real secure, though. When you look across the board, you've got Kraken on the other side for Valkyries. That will be the best confirmed tool on the map. So we're going for DPS shred on objectives for the Kings, more so versus the initial burst damage and secure that the Valhalla Valkyries have. So with these two kinds of compositions, and one of the things that you were maybe highlighting, at least for the Camelot Kings, that they were missing out on, was some of that early game. Does Ho Yi kind of bridge a little bit that early game, or do you think that still kind of slants them towards mid-late game?
Yeah, I think Ho Yi's clear really isn't the best. The Ricochet never like full clears the wave, and you do have a Khepri on your side, which is going to help a little bit, but it doesn't seem to me that the Kings are playing for that early game presence. Of course, if some beads get down, Captain Twig can get active. If Fear No Evil is always going to be able to grant some sort of value if your relics are down, if your CC ultimates are down, mainly looking here at Poseidon. Get those beats down, pretty easy kill after the fact, as long as you can avoid that Kraken. Because it's the Camelot Kings, I imagine they're just going to be superior farming, looking to get ahead in whichever way they can. They'll look towards objective. Sure, Kraken's going to be great confirmed, but if Fear No Evil's in play, you can't just all in commit to the objective. You know you're going to be feared for a bit. You have to use your beats to make sure that those ultimates are available. So I still think the Kings are slanting towards that early game, giving up a little bit of the early game, and that's exactly where the Valks want to get active.
Yeah, the Valkyries have been known, at least in phase number 2 and kind of pushing in towards Masters. They went away from kind of trying to push themselves to late and trying to get as active early on. The first 15 to 20 minutes is really where the Valhalla Valkyries have shined. And a decent team to do so. Lancelot, some great early damage out of the jungle. Guan Yu, good pressure in the solo lane. And even that Nox can offer something over towards the duo, where it seems that most of the pressure has been allocated. Nox Shibalanke kind of versus the Ho Yi Khepri. How does that lane kind of pan out, Trelly?
I imagine either Genetics is grabbing beads to say, like, okay, I don't want to be a main target of damage, because Nox Silence into Kraken is usually going to burst you early on. You can't get your Scarab's Blessing off if you're in that silence field. Or Genetics is going to say, I'm going to get a team fight relic, like a shell, a meditation, whatever that may be, and I'm going to stay as far back as possible. I don't want to make myself the first target in these fights.
We'll have to see how these two teams look after their extended break. Game number 1, the Valhalla Valkyries and the Camelot Kings. We're going to throw it over to Dave and Gormizer to bring us the first game.
That's right, J-Mac. Our first look at both the Valhalla Valkyries and the Camelot Kings here in Phase 3 of the SMITE Pro League. And super important for both of these squads, I think, to get off on the right foot. You look at the Camelot Kings, they're trying to, I guess, technically bounce back, Gore, after a fallout of the SMITE Summer Masters.
Is it a bounce back if you got second place? Kind of.
I think it depends on what do you count like Twig's post-game tournament career as? Not a full career bounce, because he's finished second a lot. So I don't think it's a bounce back.
not successful. That feels mean to say it that way, but like that's the only way. He's made it to every world championship, but he doesn't have a ring. So like,
we actually
there's not a lot of ways to describe that.
Miff did a really good job on that team check-in with the Camelot Kings. I listened in from Cincinnati. Go Bengals, by the way. I listened into the team check-in while Miff was sitting down with those guys, and a lot of really good information from that team, I think, and from that round table. So if you haven't listened to that, make sure to go back and give it a listen. I think the right mindset, though, and I bring that specifically up, the Twig stuff and finishing second, those sorts of things, because Miff specifically talked to Twig about that during that round table segment. And I think Twig approaches that in about the best way possible. He's like, look, how can you consider any of my career not successful when I'm consistently making it to the finals? And so I think bounce back-ish for the Kings, but not really. I mean, this has been the full year of successful SMITE, I think, so far from the Kings. Regardless of tournament results, they've been regular season powerhouses, and I think will continue to do so here in Phase 3.
And that's one of the things I think that there's always like a lot of weight on it. I think we've talked to Mike for similar reasons, where it's like, I think it was season 8, like the beginning of season 8, like, do you consider last year successful? And he's like, we won everything except the last tournament. Like, we were so good for the majority of the year that, of course, like, it's a successful year. And that's, I think, a really good, like you said, like a great mentality to look at it for, because of those reasons. And you look at it, you're going to have, 4 at least SBL teams that are guaranteed making it to Worlds. Kings have been in the top 4 a majority of the year.
Gotta be the Kings.
You're starting to think, okay, you're definitely like in the contention, right? Like if you're falling towards 5th, if we're having a different discussion in like 5 weeks, then something's probably gone wrong. But like you've got to think, okay, Twig is looking for his 9th appearance at a World Championship, and like you said, that is a long, successful career, right? It's never necessarily culminated in the big moment that everyone really hopes for. But it still got you exactly what you want, and that is lots of wins under your belt, good LAN tournaments, a lot of successful regular seasons, notably one of the like most familiar names for anyone who has watched SMITE esports ever. Like, he's left a mark on the game.
Yeah, you wouldn't think you need to be worried about the Kings and their ability to qualify into Worlds. Remember, the top 4 after the Phase 3 playoffs automatically qualify in. Bottom 4 from the SPL after that event have to go into the final chance Worlds play-in qualifier. Granted, anything can happen. I guess that's the beauty of the way that Worlds and its qualifiers are set up this year, where SOC, SEC teams have a shot at that one of those, or potentially all 4 of those, final 4 spots in Arlington, Texas at the SMITE World Championships. And the Valhalla Valkyries would love to avoid that. I mean, if we're stretching out how the Kings have looked all year long up to this point, I think you have to for the Valhalla Valkyries as well. A brutal first phase for the newcomers to the SPL. A much better looking second phase for this team. And so it's about continued growth. We have seen the Valhalla Valkyries improve. I don't think can be considered just an immediate pushover anymore. Still a game where the Kings would be favored to win. But I do think the Valkyries are now in a position with some of their games in Phase 2. Remember, they beat the Camelot Kings in Phase 2. This is now a team, an absolute wild card, week in and week out. They're sort of now that any given Sunday type team. Might not be favored, but can never be overlooked.
I think it's one of those things, when we get to watch so much of SMITE and a lot of, every set of SPL, right? There's different reasons I like watching specific teams, and it varies from team to team, right? Whether it's, this person, like their jungle play and this guy's mid play, I really like how explosive it can be, or this guy's support really, really captures my attention. The Valkyries as a whole are just one of my favorite teams to watch because of the improvement that they've been making. And it's really exciting to me to see if they're going to be able to continue that. Because like you said, towards the end of Phase 2, they were looking really good.
Well, you're hoping to avoid dropping for first blood early here in Game 1. Kirmi is able to do so. Catches a lot of damage from Tings and Twig. But luckily able to avoid death. Can Wowhy do the same, though? Aggression, not only in mid, but over on the left side of the map. Does give Twig an opening now. Can invade some of these back camps. Kirmi wants to blink forward, uses his blink, and unable. If I saw correctly, which certainly debatable, all 3 Harpies going over to Captain Twig. And so at worst, a minorly successful invade for the Hunbats.
I will say, though, and I think this is like good timing for Kirmi to use that blink, because when else is it going to be? You know, your Lancelot, once you have your ult, you've got a pretty good close gap. You've already got a pretty decent close gap in your move speed when you mount up. So you've got a lot of that, and you're not going to have ult for the next 2 minutes anyway. So you might as well use it now to try and just get something going for you. Again, maybe you could have held it and gone for a gank, but
sure.
I like at least trying to show presence, right? And to me, that really reads as not just letting the Kings take control of this game immediately, right? Still wanting to, I mean, at half health, blink forward against the Hunbats, I think is just a good presence of mind for him. I'm really interested to see how they can adapt to the meta. Like Lancelot has been a little bit on the table the last couple of days, where that's going to be. The Guan Yu has been very big on the table since we're watching him right now.
Yeah.
I'm mostly curious about the Nox. Not a lot of people have run it even in this year. I mean, you know, Jake went back to it a ton, because I think, if I'm still remembering correctly, I'd have to go double check. For a while there, they had a 100% win rate when Jake was on Nox. It might still be a 100% win rate for the Bolts if Jake's on Nox. But nobody else has really been glancing that way. And you know, the silence is going to be nice. There's a lot that you're going to be able to provide. Lockdown that's really good. Your ult still feels pretty solid.
Yeah.
But it's not the same as it once was. Actually, I think she got a buff to her clear recently. And so maybe it's going to be fantastic. Maybe it's going to fall apart. I'm really curious to see what Gamma can do with this.
Still mask start for Gamma. Whereas, you know, the E-set support, Nox support, the mage style supports were building mask a bit later on in the build. Now have to grab it as a starter item, but still the option for Gamma here. And if you talk about some of the areas of growth for this Valkyries team, as now potential for first blood in that duo lane, the Valhalla Valkyries really between Wowie and Gamma, I think have started to step up to the plate a little bit.
Yeah.
Serious issues early on in the year during phase number 1. Wowie had gone killless for a certain stretch of games, 5-6 games in a row. Had really started to step up, though, for this Valkyries team. And I think being able to sustain and sort of survive this lane so far, where Netrioid has been jumping in and Genetics has been hitting those roots consistently, at least a good early look for the Valks. What you don't want to do is hand over early pressure to early kill pressure really to Genetics and Netrioid, because we know how the Kings love to get the ball rolling over there sometimes, rotate that out of that lane. And so while the lane hasn't looked fantastic so far for Gamma and Wowie, gotta just be about keeping your feet underneath yourselves, because there's plenty of kill pressure between Genetics and Netrioid so far.
Yeah, and honestly, if I'm looking at it, you know, you've got a lot. So the Kings, and if you're looking at team fight, that's where I was going to go with the Valkyries. If you look at the Kings first, though, you've got a Fear No Evil. You've got the Prot Shred coming down from the AMC. You've got a hi-rez. You've got variety with his ult. Like, there's a lot that's definitely going to play against you, I think, when you're fighting in these nice, tight corridors of the jungle in a 5v5. But the Valks have a Kraken. They've got healing. That's going to be great in combat healing from the Guan Yu. You've got Lancelot for a cripple field. You've got good CC from Gamma. You've got decent CC, at least in turning off the lights coming down from Wowie, which maybe isn't a hard CC, but honestly, taking away information like that is always nice. So it feels like the Valkyries definitely have a lot to build off of, a lot of good building blocks here. It does feel like the Kings got a draft, though, that they, like, outside of the Ho Yi on that team, I feel like every single one of those gods is in like the top 3, top 5 that we see for these players. And so it is definitely going to be something that feels slightly like an uphill battle, but it was already an uphill battle, right? Just based on standings that we've seen so far this year. I'm just excited to see what they're going to be able to do with it, especially, you know, looking at it, slow pace. You've already got the spikes online for the supports, but you've gone for the Doom Orb for the Poseidon, so I expect to see BiniQ making some rotations relatively soon.
Good damage from Wowie onto Netrioid. Does maybe raise the eyebrows a bit, but Netrioid quick and happy just to jump out of that lane. Captain Twig has Fear No Evil, will not let the first one of the game fly, despite Aquarius being down beneath half HP. So a little pressure mounting from Variety. Kirmi has made their way over to the left side of the map. Certainly way too early for a Gold Fury. Now, you know, how many times have we said this? You're watching a Camelot Kings game, nothing has happened kill-wise on the map, and the Kings already have a 1,000 gold lead. Feels like we're saying that all the time, and it's exactly what's happened here in game number 1. 7 minutes in, 1,000 gold, give or take, depending on where the lanes are crashing for the Camelot Kings. Just good neutral farm control for this Kings team so far. And that's always a threat, Gore. What you cannot do against the Camelot Kings is just let them slowly bleed the game away from you. you hope to see some proactivity from the Valkyries here in the next few minutes.
And when we watched like the SEC, we always talk heavily about like EU style. The Kings love that, right? Like they'll fight if they need to, but they're just gonna farm better than you. Like every single time, it's gonna be small invades. It's never gonna be anything gratuitous. It's so far, I mean, no big, jungle objective, no Gold Fury, Pyromancer's not even back up. It has just been in these small little invades wherever they can find them, whether it's a small buff, whether it's some of the back camps, things like that, which opens up these opportunities. And slowly but surely, like you said, it becomes a little bit more of an issue, right? Right now, there's only a level difference between Netroid and Wowie. And it's not even a full level as it comes through. But it really is not like fully in the experience. It's just going to be in the itemization.
Yeah. Dominance to start for Netroid. So immediate impact here where Wowie needs to get that Transcendence up and stacking over the next couple of minutes of this game. Same for Kirmi. Captain Twig's got Brawler's Beat Stick, whereas Transcendence for Kirmi stacking up over the next couple of minutes. Pressure from the Camelot Kings makes its way left, but it's spotted out by the Valks. Twig had kind of waddled his way in forward here, but Kirmi there to match. Scepter picked up by the Valhalla Valkyries. Haven't had much of a conversation around that just yet, Gore. Scepter is back over on the left side of the map.
Yeah.
Far from game-breaking for the team that picks it up, but still a good boost you'd love to have on your side.
What's been fun for me is watching how the teams prioritize who's getting it. Because a lot of the time we've seen it going to the supports. It's just really helpful in terms of lane pressure that you're going to get over in the duo lane. But seeing it go over here to Kirmi means to me that they are really focused on the fact that Kirmi and noticing the fact that he's kind of been struggling against Twig.
Netroid has jumped in onto Wowie consistently. Beads for the Jabalanque still there. Had that stun connected, you have to imagine Wowie would have mashed that relic key. But able to hold on to it just off the mark as Netroid, both hunters using their ultimates. Now Genetics gobbled up by the Kraken. He's got a Scarab's Blessing ready to go. Will he need it? Yes, he will, and it's right on time for Genetics. And a Fear No Evil from Twig. That'll buy some peel for the Camelot Kings support. And despite all the action, no kills dropping just yet. Mirrored as far as ultimates go. Mid 3v3, 6 ultimates down.
Honestly, the thing that stands out to me the most in that fight, as weird as it is, Kirmi's timing on his ult was perfect, right?
That was good.
Great to dodge the Fear No Evil, just the right amount of distance, gets him back into the jungle. You eat a Fear No Evil plus the Stinger, like that is such a deadly combo. If you're CC'd there, you're dead. The fact that he got out is strictly because his movement was able to displace him that fast. So I think just really good reaction timing makes me kind of on the edge of my seat to see who's going to get the first blood.
Yep.
That amount of investment, I was wondering when and where this Kraken was going to fall. And it's going to be the problem. I won't be surprised if BennyQ maybe even invests a little bit into some cooldown just because you want to beat out that Scarab's Blessing. You're going to naturally beat it out just based on cooldowns already.
Yep.
But trying to make sure that you have that big burst and it's not just undone by one ult on the other side is going to be very helpful for your team.
Trying to sense how much danger Netroid was really in, but has some safety. Scarab's Blessing not quite back from Genetics. BennyQ gets the Kraken back just a bit before the Stinger from Big Man Tings. So ultimates really important there for BennyQ around these objectives, especially when you consider the Camelot Kings in the way that this team likes to play the game. Totally fine with a slower paced kill game are the Camelot Kings, using the objectives in the map to build up that gold lead for themselves. I think if you're the Valhalla Valkyries, you've got this Kraken. Of course you'd love it for team fights and damage. But I wonder, Gore, if that maybe gives the Valkyries a bit of confidence fighting into some of the early objectives that you imagine the Kings will pull.
I was thinking one of these teams was going for a Pyromancer super early on. That's such a wild amount of rotation for a Totem of Coup. But again, solo
laners would
victories.
beg to differ, Gore. Totem of Coup as important as the Pyromancer.
Well, it feels like one that could culminate in a kill, could culminate in this massive team fight. But no one wants to choose that engage. Because at this point, I mean, you kind of mentioned it, but like with 1,000 gold separating you,
stable,
first blood bounty is like actually a big deal, right? If the Valks get it, it's an even game. If the Kings get it, they finally get to pull far enough ahead that they could feel pretty confident maybe going for a Pyromancer or something else.
Again, we've asked for proactivity from the Valkyries, providing it a bit. Looked for a gank here or there. Again, haven't struck pay dirt just yet, but I think still, it's a delicate balance when you're playing against this Kings team. Proactivity versus buying your time. And the time might be now. Remember, BennyQ with the Kraken. Camelot Kings have to think twice where they're pulling these objectives. And that's massive from Gamma and Benny Q. That'll get first blood to the Valhalla Valkyries, and a Scarab's Blessing not used until now by Genetics. A double root, and it should be a double kill for the Valks, but big damage from big man Tings on the back end. Evens the score here in this fight. Though a 2-for-1 for the Valhalla Valkyries ultimately provides a bit of an edge. A nice double ricochet from Netrioid, and the chase continues for the Kings, but on the fadeaway, Gamma and Benny Q make it 3 for the Valks.
I mean, that's just such a clean engagement, right? Immediately with the Kraken. And most teams, I would argue, and maybe in certain instances, you just get out after that. But they see the kill, they see the opportunity for Genetics. It is a little too much for Kirmi, right? A little too deep. A very good rotation. Netroid's all the way over there. Wowie's only able to affect him with the ult. But either way, you're able to get some of that damage out there. And Kirmi gives his life for something a little bit more grandiose than just himself, right? Allows the team to keep that chase up, gets the kill for Genetics, and then it's just that chase from the Kings. Once again, it feels like 2 moments where maybe you could have just dropped it, but you didn't. And unfortunately for each team, it did result in a kill for the other side.
Gore, you're spot on. Not only first blood bounty, but a couple of extra kills for the Valkyries has now given the Valks the lead. Are the Kings going for the same exact play that just resulted in them losing 3 team members? The Valhalla Valkyries rotating right back in, but Aquarius has been left alone. Onto the cavalry charge, and yes, indeed, it's Genetics who's dead at the hands of Benny Q yet again. The Kings pulling the pyro. The Valkyries call him on it. They lose their support yet again.
I don't know what floors me more, how fast Aquarius' health bar dropped,
Yeah, I was speeding.
or the fact that after it dropped that fast, he still got out of there. He just rode a horse right on out of there. I mean, very clean play from them, getting that healing, the amount of, even though it's not crazy heavy just yet, but the tankiness he's been able to absorb. It's been a very good look for him. And this is what we were talking about with the Valks towards the end of the phase, and what we've gotten to see out of them is that this team, I mean, in phase 1, they're, at 14 minutes in, they're down 5,000 gold, and you don't even know where it's happened. It's just somehow the map played against them, whatever it was. But now you're getting this squad that is a lot more confident, a lot better at their farming. Admittedly, difficult to farm against the Kings no matter what. I mean, some of the best teams in the world still struggle with that. But you're able to find these kills, find these picks. It's still the same issue for me right now, though, which is what can you convert it into? They've got a lot of picks around the Pyromancer, but no Pyromancer. They haven't been able to pick up or put any pressure on a Gold Fury. You've got a Kraken. If it's not used in a fight, I think it's a great secure and something they can keep their eyes on.
Oh, squishy. Not squishy enough is Variety. Nice fadeaway stun onto Kirmi. Probably keeps that Lancelot at bay. But 2 from the Valkyries show their face on right. That means the Kings, ever objective-minded, immediately rotate left. And Gore, I think we're seeing some of the undertones of this Kraken, this Poseidon for Benny Q. That's a numbers advantage for the Kings. Now, Kirmi, speedy, of course, can get over to the left side of the map quickly. But I think there's a world where the Kings feel okay about rushing that down. But the presence of Benny Q and that Kraken keep the Gold Fury on the map.
It's such a difficult, well, yeah, we'll see how long it stays there. It's such a difficult thing to try and engage on because if it comes down too early, then it can get stolen away.
No, Kraken too early. That's my fault. It's my fault. I've hyped up the Kraken around the objectives all game long, and it's just too early from Benny Q. And Pyromancer stolen by the Camelot Kings. How impactful is it? About 500 gold or so in the lead now are the Camelot Kings. Would love to pull some of that back with a kill on the Variety. And how about the shot calling from the Kings? You break the Suns from Netrioid over the head of the Gold Fury. And the swing, momentous in this game. Look at the golden XP chart. Spike downward in favor of the Camelot Kings. And it's a steal, it's a mistimed Kraken. And then perfect shot calling immediately over to Gold Fury. Big objective, big ultimate down. Good plays from the Kings.
Honestly, I think the thing, as impressive as the shot calling is, I think what's most impressive to me is not a single kill. They didn't even need to take a fight. They just walk forward. And again, sometimes, I was going to say, I expect that the Krakens will be fine. That Twig's going to have to go for some really deep Fear No Evils. Speaking of which, he's been able to find 2. But it's locking away Benny Q is what I was thinking of. That's the way that you're going to be able to secure your objectives,
delay the ult.
Make sure that he's far away, drop your Fear No Evil so he can't get close enough. Instead, you can also just rely on them dropping it a little too soon. That doesn't happen often or all the time. But in moments like that, when it swings the lead back into your favor that heavily, you're going to take it.
I think worth mentioning Netrioid's ult. Not the same immediate burst, but drop it on top of an objective.
A good amount of damage.
You still get a few ticks of that chunk. give yourself the opportunity to secure one of the big ones later on in this game. So you'll take the Kraken, but obviously the Ho-Yi ult not bad, not only for team fighting, but around some of those objectives as well. BennyQ, up to this point, had gotten near max value out of that Charon's coin. Purchased it, couple of kills, couple of assists, 4 stacks on it already. Could be Toxic Blade, something similar up next for BennyQ. Get some of that anti-heal out there. Skips finishing the item in tier 3. Goes right into the Soul Reaver. Wants more of that HP burst damage from this Poseidon. I think you got to continue playing around it though, Gore. It's been a great look so far here. You kind of whiff a bit around that Pyromancer. Don't think you can abandon that just yet if you're the Valhalla Valkyries. Now Twig is in some danger, but he is on his own side of the jungle. But the 3-player collapse from the Valkyries. No blue buff here. Pyromancer not back up yet. You're certainly not going for Fire Giant, so hope you don't overextend, and all the Valks are able to get out.
Yeah, that was almost entirely a how much do you want to commit. Like, Aquarius could have dropped his ult at any time, gone for a stun, tried to lock up Twig, especially once the blink was down, the leap was down. There's no real escape other than the tower for Twig at that point. How much do you want to commit to it, right? It was the question, and the answer was not a lot. And it does come down to this, you know, one big engagement, one bad engagement for the Valkyries results in a great shot call from the other side.
Kraken, this one's on to Genetics yet again. Another good Fear No Evil though from Captain Twig. Cavalry charge from Aquarius, counters out a lot of it. There's your damage from Netrioid. And it's Gamma who drops first. The Kings with only their 2nd kill of the game, but add a 3rd on a double kill from Netrioid. And the Kings simply collapse around the Valkyries. Pyromancer still not there, nor is the Fury. So what else can you get on the back of 2 kills?
This might be one of the most said phrases this year, but you just can't let the Kings have Khepri. It's so frustrating.
So
and it's one of those things, in certain circumstances, or if you had an Execute, if there was an Achilles, if there was a Thanatos, something like that, to try and burn through that ultimate, it would be incredibly nice for the Valkyries here. But that just goes to show why it's such an issue is you burst him down.
Yep.
You kill him. He's out of the fight, but he's not actually dead. And you have an option of proc it or leave him alone. And either of those options don't feel great. He's at a tier 1 tower. He can just run back if he's alive. And if you proc it, he's got more health than what he was just at, and he can turn around and help his team. Plus, with everybody rotating over, the Kings just feel like too cohesive of a unit right now for the Valkyries to try and pick apart. And unfortunately, it's scenarios like this, right? Gamma and Aquarius are kind of alone, not really with a lot of help.
Ooh, righty, tanking up the Phoenix, uses beads and Stygian Torment, and he gets out despite the Kraken on his head. And that is unbelievable from the Kings. Tanking up the Phoenix, deal half of its HP and damage. Variety does have teleport, so don't be surprised if a Cerberus is back in base and then teleporting back into lane here in just a moment. A really good look now for the Camelot Kings, and Gore, that 30-second death timer keeps the door open on this Phoenix Siege.
Not only that, but you got the Shogun's Kusari there for Genetics. Everyone's just going to hit faster on the side of the Kings.
Wow, the Valkyries do spread out some great damage, a lot of it onto Genetics. As Scarab's Blessing, looks like poke damage for now. Scarab's Blessing gets used, an important Fear No Evil from Twig onto the back line of the Valhalla Valkyries. Gets some damage in. And if the goal for the Valks was keeping that Phoenix alive, goal complete. All 3 birds still on the map.
I mean, sometimes that's all it takes.
That's
Look,
all
that right Phoenix is barely alive, but alive, right?
alive,
There's no
it's
fire
there.
minions you have to worry about. It keeps a little bit going. You've got 2 towers still standing in mid and in left, right? You don't have to worry too much about it with your tier 1 still up. Admittedly, that's more gold for the Kings to pick up in the siege, but it gives you a little more leeway to work with when it comes down to defense. Going around tier 2s, well, actually, with the Kraken coming back up and the way that things are kind of staggered in terms of ultimates, specifically for the Kings not having that Scarab's Blessing, I actually really like the Valkyries' odds for the next, 2 minutes of the Fire Giant buff.
Yep.
This power play is going to be strong for the Kings, but it's not all that they wrote.
Another Kraken onto a front line. This time, finally, prayers answered from the Valkyries, but quickly dashed against the rocks as Netrioid has jumped in, but he's jumped too far. He has. Double kill for BennyQ on the Poseidon. And finally, some pay dirt for the mid laner. The Valhalla Valkyries have been sat on 4 kills for a while.
Oh.
But as quickly as it's looking good for the Valks, sent back a little bit. You lose Aquarius and Gamma. 2-for-2 trade. Maybe about as good as it'll get for the Valkyries right now.
And here's the downside. In most team comps, you killed Netrioid. That's the siege, right? I mean, you're going to be able to spend the next minute not worried about too much. probably lose a tier 1 anyway because mages are still going to be able to do that. Tings is still playing a carry. He's still on a hunter. He's still going to be able to burn this down. They still have the fire giant. And with genetics being left alive after that engagement, you get exactly this, right? A couple of minions, one guy who can tank it. Yep. It might not be the Phoenix Siege that you would like if you're a Kings fan or a Kings player, but it's still a massive amount of gold infusion that's going into your pockets, giving you a much more comfortable lead. You're able to upgrade, get an Executioner glyph, the Ferocious Executioner picked up there, or Netrioid. You're upgrading and getting, specifically a tier 3 there for your med if your genetics plus whatever I can imagine you're going to grab on this back. It just feels like, even in a losing scenario where it feels like the Valks should have had a pretty decent grasp and control on that fight, you still came out kind of ahead.
Yeah, not the 10 steps forward type of fire giant, but you still take a few steps forward. And if you're the Kings, that is just fine. And as we talked about, that's how they play their game. Valhalla Valkyrie score, I wonder if, how many times have we said it? I wonder if you're just looking for the big Kraken now. You got enough itemization online. Toxic Blade finish for Benny Q. Starter item upgraded. 6 stacks on the Charon's coin. Was near top player damage, or still is near top player damage. Was top player damage with Benny Q for a little while. Double kill in the last fight. Do you feel the avenue for the Valks back in has just got to be a big play from their mid laner?
It feels like a lockup from not just Benny Q, but maybe even a clean engage from either Aqua or Gamma. Like, there's a lot for them to really start these fights off. It's just you're dealing with not only some massive circles on the other side, but that unfortunate scenario that Khepri always creates for you. And Genetics is so adept at this, but you're going to have to kill someone twice on the Kings. And whether or not you can find someone isolated enough that you're just lucky to turn it into a 4v5 is different.
Twig saw a double root and then saw an initiation. Stygian Torment down from Variety, but he's been taking up the tower this whole time. The counter engage from the Valkyries does not keep the tower alive, but keeps all the players alive. Something to be said for that. But I think most importantly, 2 big ultimates still left on the map. It's a Scarab's Blessing for the Kings, and a Kraken still around for the Valkyries. Have to keep your eyes on steal potential.
I think that's the important part, right? Kraken still being available. You need to be
here.
there. That's getting burned.
He's not here. Valhalla Valkyries are unable to get their mid laner in range, if that was even the plan. Not sure they were even looking for the steal, but wasn't an option as Benny Q was over in the mid lane. Ultimate now down from Kyrmi as well. Looking at those diamonds on the right, now it's Captain Twig waiting for the Fear No Evil, waiting for the Stygian Torment for Variety to get back up. One big fight over the horizon between the Camelot Kings and winning game number 1.
This is where Poseidon can be very helpful. Whirlpool so wide. That Kraken could be good, but Variety takes like nothing in terms of damage.
He was in the center. Did that hit him? Variety is tanking everything right now. Down to half HP on his way back. And the Kraken gone. So, hey, we need a big Kraken from Benny Q. It feels like a lot of them have been onto the front line. That's just how it goes. You kind of got to backpedal. That's who's there. But you haven't killed them off this time. Variety still stands. Aquarius does not. Stinger weaves its way through the Valkyries, connects with the solo laner. And now a 4v5 to save the game. A 4v3. And the goal is the same for the Valhalla Valkyries, but Ultimate's dropping. Kyrmi's health bar is as well. The Camelot Kings, one miracle away from the Valhalla Valkyries dropping out of game number 1. It's been a clean performance from the Kings.
It was a really, really good early game from the Valks here. Able to get up, 4-1 at one point were the kills, unfortunately for them. It's been the Scarab's Blessing pretty routinely for a majority of the duration of that game. Essentially, once it came online, it was just difficult. If Genetics was involved in the fight, things weren't going their way. But the other one that really caught them off guard in a lot of those mid-game fights, Netroid's rotations, right? Wowie's still over in the duo lane. He can offer you an ult, but there's no way he's going to get there in time. There's no way he's going to be helpful outside of that ult for it. And unfortunately for them, they weren't in a position to really knock down a tower at the same time. Like, you didn't have the split push potential either. So all of that presence, and you're getting Hu-Yi ricocheted in mid because there's not much you can do about it. The Suns are getting dropped. You're stunned. It just feels like they read the scenario really well, get aggressive really well, and with the Kings' rotations being just a little too fast for the Valks, it led to a pretty nice and comfortable lead.
Gore, I just think back to the moment where Pyromancer gets stolen, and it felt like that just sucked all the wind out of the sails. Because immediately then it's a rotation over to Gold Fury. You know, it's a missed Kraken, it's a Pyromancer steal. But then there's no pressure from the Valks over on the left side of the map, and the Gold Fury goes to the Kings. Gold lead starts to get out of control at that point. Clinical as always. Some drop kills early on from the Camelot Kings, but the game That's very different. Camelot Kings take game number 1. Valhalla Valkyries looking for the bounce back. Game 2 coming up next.
Water. Earth. Fire. Momo?
Sit back, enjoy the ride.
Hello and welcome back to the SMITE Pro League. Camelot Kings take game number 1. And if you like the Camelot Kings, the Valhalla Valkyries, or any of our teams in the SMITE Pro League, and I mean, you've got to like at least one of them. You're here watching it, obviously, today. Then make sure you go over to shop.smiteproleague.com and pick up our brand new merch for our teams, brought to us by our good friends over at Skulls. All new jerseys for the team that have come out through this phase. Make sure that you pick them up now. The brand new Jazzberry Jam Jade Dragons jersey. The Scarabs moving over from the orange to the green, which, although I'm personally a little bit more of a fan of orange itself, is still a sick jersey out there for the Scarabs. All of our teams, brand new jerseys, our players, making sure to rep those ones out there as well. So if you've got a favorite team, or even if one of these jerseys just looks really cool, make sure that you go over to shop.smiteproleague.com or shop.hi-rezstudios.com/SPL. Either of those links will work, and make sure that you get you over to the great gear that our pros are wearing. So thank you again to Skulls for sponsoring us for the merch for Phase 3 and for Season 9 of the SMITE Pro League. I'm J-Mac. I got Trelly joining me to help me break down game number 1, because at least for the first half of the game, the Valhalla Valkyries were looking pretty clean, making some strong fights over in the opposing jungle.
True.
But then, unfortunately, we hit the brick wall known as the Camelot Kings 20-25 minute of objective-minded play. This Khepri coming in clutch, Variety able to survive a lot of these fights, and Camelot Kings are able to take it.
Yeah, I mean, I said beforehand, what I wanted to see from the Valks was, yes, that scrappy early game that we know them for, but also transitioning that into the late game team fight phase, of which they've struggled before. And this was no different. Like, the 4-1 lead, as you see, is all well and good, but still the Camelot Kings are up in gold. Like, that's what's going to continue. That trend has never went away, and I think it's very difficult for any team to be able to outfarm the Camelot Kings at any point in that early game, you know. But still, that, you know, the brick wall that you called it, that 20-minute mark, when these carries are starting to get to level 20, when everyone starts getting that items online, that's when the Camelot Kings really flourish, and unfortunately, that's where the Valks usually start to dwindle their fights a little bit.
Unfortunately for Kirmi, once you kind of got past the early game, the real big power spike of the Lancelot, we start getting to these late game team fights. Not as much impact out of him in that regard. Gamma able to find some very nice root targets and did lead to some very strong picks by Benny Q on this Poseidon. But, I mean, when you have a 5-man death ball of the Camelot Kings running at a single player like this every single time, it's hard for the Valkyries to make a bounce back in that regard.
Yeah, and again, you got to highlight genetics on those Scarabs blessings. Like, it's so annoying when you're trying to build back, you're trying to come back, trying to find some sort of pick, trying to force just any bit of gold lead you can, and then the Scarabs blessings are just always there, always on point, always there to stunt your progress, and you use so many ultimates to try and confirm just one kill, and then it just gets taken away from you. But there was a lot of bans available. You know, if you don't want to deal with this Khepri, there are ways to not deal with this Khepri. You can, you know, the Aquarius is not shied away from the Achilles solo, that sort of thing, and also just throw a ban their way. But given the fact that there's a lot of picks that Genetics looks really, really good on, I can see how the Khepri just inched his way through this time, and it just depends on what sort of adaptations the Valks are going to make. That could definitely be one. If they're trying to get active late game, that's going to be something they want to take away.
Yeah, banning out a player like Genetics is also just so difficult.
It's very hard.
One of the first times that I was here in the studio getting to cast SPL, I watched a game where Genetics had 7 bans allocated to him.
Yep.
Essentially 7 bans at that point. There's 6 bans and then a pick.
Yeah, pick
as
and
well.
all the bans, right.
And he picks out a Cerberus support and still wins the game. It's almost impossible to truly ban out a player like that, but I think you're right to highlight maybe taking away a couple of the problem children of that. The Emojas, the Khepris, probably all smart bans to be able to take from them. We'll see if the Valkyries can make that adaptation in picks and bans for game number 2. They will keep that Umoja banned away, not going to want to pick that up themselves, not going to want to give that one over to one of the best Umojis in the league. And that Khepri that was such a problem in game number 1 does not make it through here in game number 2, Charlie. That one gets banned away by the Valks.
Yeah, I definitely think a smart call there. If the Valks were able to force those picks, as I said, maybe that gold lead wouldn't have been as... I mean, it wasn't even big. It was not a gold lead, but the point is they had 4 kills and still no gold lead. So maybe they would have had the gold lead had that Khepri not been there. That's probably the thought process, and I do think a smart ban there. Kabrakan and Hades just extremely powerful in the meta at the moment. Good Bancroft's Claw users, probably smart to take those away as well. So now... the ball is in the Valks court. Do they want to try and take away, I don't know, the BMT, AMC, for example, or just hold that for themselves? Benny Q could certainly pilot that in the mid lane. The Poseidon looked good, but AMC just never loses pressure. And it looks like Benny Q's not looking for that pick, and they also do not want it in the hands of BMT. So that's going to be taken away. And now the Kings have their last slot here. Could be the Guan Yu if they thought that Aquarius was doing too much. Very high active early game, tons of damage. The Fabulous Hoops healing build has been extremely prominent in the meta. or they can just say, you know what, Aquarius, you can have that. It wasn't our biggest threat, and we're more so worried about possible Naja or Cure Me on the Lancelot, something like that.
With the Hades and Kabrakan banned away by the Kings, one more option,
There it
and
is.
it will be the Ymir. So 4 Guardians, then a Hades and an AMC banned away. That leaves Naja open, who was banned away prior in game number 1. So that will be a first pick snap block for the Valkyries. Now, I don't want to say we saw flexibility in it already. You know, we've seen a lot of jungle, and then we saw Pagon play it, but he essentially played it jungle. So I'm going to say that the Naja on his returning debut towards the SPL has been seeing exclusively jungle play. Not to dismiss the fact that he was a support at once upon a time, a couple of seasons back. Haven't seen nearly as much of that anymore.
I'm calling him a mid laner now.
You're going to call Naja a mid lane?
Yeah, I mean, until someone else plays him. Pagon played him a mid, looked
He
decent.
didn't even play a mid. He was playing as a jungler.
Yeah, but he's a mid laner.
We have seen an Atlas mid before we saw a Naja mid.
Nope, that was Atlas jungle. I will not allow any Naja mid slander until it's played in the jungle, and possibly in this game. And now we do get to see what the Camelot Kings are going to grab it in return. You highlighted already. There was a ton of bans towards 2 genetics. Does he want to go for the Terra? Looks like yes, that's going to be the first pick. And now the Vulcan as well. I love seeing the Vulcan get more and more play. Turns out all he needed was a little bit of cooldown on the 2 and then the 1 not to be crippled anymore. And people are loving the Vulcan again.
Look, man, as a Vulcan player, when you have something like a whirlpool thrown under you and you're just trying to clear the wave, it's the worst feeling in the world. It's kind of like how Thor used to be when he couldn't throw his hammer under the Vex cripple. That got buffed up, and I was sitting there going, man, when's Vulcan's going to get his time to shine? When's Vulcan going to be able to get the damage at least under cripple? Now he does. Now he can. And it seems that that little boost plus the buff you mentioned with his 2 getting that extra cooldown has really brought him to the forefront of a lot of these mid laners. We even saw it, I guess, technically run ADC with Cyclone Spin earlier on as well. So Vulcan is here to stay, at least for now. We'll see how he performs for the rest of the league.
You know, the buff that would make him a solo laner is if Turret could hit Totem. Because then you could just leave it there, and you could just get infinite Totem of coup control. At the moment, it doesn't attack the Totem. It doesn't even see it as an enemy, but if it did, then I would just be playing solo Vulcan for the rest of my days. I would never even have to test Totem. Infinite coup control. And I'd pick it every game.
Let the hunt begin.
Honestly, you're not even wrong on it. You leave it there. You don't even care about it in the lane. You don't even let your solo laner go over to it. You just let it sit there and free farm. It kind of brings it back, you know, back when you would get 3-4 items online and you just drop turret at a camp and walk away because turret would just full clear it no matter what.
From this world.
But on the opposite side, for the Valhalla Valkyries, rounding back into the draft, Artemis and Yu Huang locked in. Now, we haven't seen Yu Huang as prominent as of recent. He was kind of the hot topic whenever he first came available to the pros, was seeing a lot of success, and then was seeing a lot of mixed success as the phase continued on. How do you feel about the Yu Huang so far with the composition?
Well, I think the Yu Huang is always going to bring a ton off that ultimate. It brings big damage with the dueling dragons at the bottom of Windfire wheels. I'm going to hold off until that gets locked in because I want to talk about it. Darn it, man! I knew it! I really wanted to... Never mind. Erlang Shen. Ooh, yeah, Twig playing Erlang Shen. That's so new. Anyways, yeah, Yu Huang, big burst damage, has some great early potential as long as you can keep that Dow cultivated. And as well as you're trying to get that late game online, which Yu Huang has in spades, but also... Nothing to scoff at in the early. You got Artemis as well. The Valks are trying to walk that tightrope of balancing great late game teamfight presence as well as a little bit of pressure in the mid so they don't just get rolled over. I think a smart draft and, you know, Twig on the Erlang Shen, that's nothing new.
We've seen a lot of very early kill pressure out of Yu Huang. I think back to multiple first bloods that this god has been able to get when you couple him with something like an Erlang or an Osiris, even a Gilgamesh back then. Naja seems it could fit that exact same bill. So dangerous mid 2v2 out of the Valkyries, at least early on in the game. But now as the bans roll through, Ganesh away from the Camelot Kings, Ho Yi on the opposite side for the Valkyries. So with no Hunter locked in, seems the Valks are going to try and limit a little bit of Netroid's God Pool. Imagine probably Chiron might be the next one banned if that's the case that they're going, Trelly.
Yeah, certainly could be the case, and it looks like just trying to get rid of some of the, the presence that Gamma can bring into that lane. And you are right to call out that Chiron ban. Netroid just so lethal on those Centaurus snipes. And now, we've got a fair bit of what we're looking at here duo lane-wise, because I don't imagine the Terra gets played in the solo lane, but it does have some sort of presence there, so could be the option, throwing that over towards that solo lane. Because Genetics plays it so well, I have to imagine he'll be taking that Terra. It looks like the Chernobog, one of the top picks a little bit ago during the first Masters event has fallen off a bit, but still, that global presence is something that none of these teams love to deal with. You don't want to have someone sitting there in your lane and then can join the fight across the map with the click of a button. And it looks like the Camelot Kings are going to grab that global presence for themselves.
Ardio
Everything
and
will be all
Mulan
right
being
once the
covered.
pain's
Ardio
gone
locked
away.
in. Typically solo laner. That's what we've been seeing in the majority of her career, at least in the last couple of years. But we just saw earlier today from PBM,
Yep.
Ardio in the support role. Mulan has most often been over in the solo lane herself. Has seen very limited flexibility between jungle and support through her time, but mostly has just been sticking towards that solo lane. Do you think we're seeing the Ardio support come out here for the Valkyries?
That would definitely be the best option, I
Justice
feel,
shall
just
be done.
because, wow, they drafted a ton of movement characters, movement abilities into this comp. Of course, Vulcan's not going to care about the Ardio cripple, but Tyr, Chernobog, Terra, they are all going to care about that Ardio cripple. So I think a very strong pick on the side of the Valks, but it seems to me like the Kings didn't care too much about it. They're like, yeah, there's going to be the cripple, but we can play around that fact. And for my money, yeah, probably keeping it in the duo lane because it works so well into the Terra as well as that Chernobog is the best way to go. And I saw Mike do it. It looked well. It gives you that early pressure. You got more abilities than just about anyone in the game early on at like level 2. And you should be able to get solid pressure here for Wowie on this Artemis.
Kind of feels like a god that can maybe even abuse things like that Manticore spike from earlier on that we've been seeing a lot of. Even maybe the Fabless Hoops is a potential there to run over in that support role. So we'll see where the Valkyries round those two drafts out, though. I think you're right to say the Ardio support, probably the more likely of them. Opposite side for the Camelot Kings, you mentioned a lot of mobility to kind of fight into this Ardio tier, something that we didn't really see a lot of. And then Masters came around, Hex Mambo, Deathwalker specifically, saw a lot of Tyr until he wasn't allowed to ever touch Tyr again after his play that really shook the world.
He did a play?
Huh?
He did a play?
You know, just a little, a small little
I was
play.
gonna say, was it even good? Like,
You know, it was only a 4-man fearless against
he missed
people.
someone.
Yeah, he unfortunately missed out on there, so didn't quite get the full value of there. But jokes aside, I mean, how do you kind of feel about Tyr right now, especially with the rise of these things like Manticore Spike?
I'm a big fan of Tyr in general. The lane matchup is always going to be a fun time, but again, into the Ardio specifically, it's going to be a bit annoying. But it's all on whoever's piloting the Ardio. Again, I still think that Gamma could certainly take it in support. Either way, whichever one of the tanks is going to take the Ardio, you got to make sure that cripple field is on point. The second Tyr blinks to the backline, it's already got to be down, or else you're missing some of the value there and still displacing some of your carry stuff like that. It's an annoying matchup, but once you get some movement speed online, you don't care too much about like hard CC because of the Tyr passive, and then you can still be a detriment to the backline. Make sure that you're getting those beats down consistently. It's never a fun pick to go up against if you can let that Tyr get online.
Well, discussions around the Valhalla Valkyries, at least for the most part, have been this early game, their first 15 minutes of play. Trelly, do you think that the Valkyries have drafted a composition that can allow them to really play that early game style against the Kings draft?
Yeah, I do think they were walking that tightrope. They're like, okay, we had good early picks, right? We had the good early game, but the late game is what we have to build for. So I think they did walk that pretty well, and they've got tools for both.
We'll see if the Valhalla Valkyries can bring it back in game number 2. Can they drag it to game number 3? Or the Camelot Kings going to shut it out? We'll throw it over to the casters for our second game.
Camelot Kings have a high potential composition. I'm excited to see what they're able to get done here in game number 2. Last couple of times we've seen this tier, it's been game-changing, needless to say. But is this tier drafted into a composition from the Valhalla Valkyries that could give it some trouble? The Valks, I think, have gotten themselves a draft tier Gormizer in game 2. Should give them some confidence in their ability to fight in. Kirmi loved the lockdown. Aquarius loved the aggression. So there are bits and pieces of this Valkyries comp that I really enjoy. And I'd say the same thing about the Camelot Kings. Very excited about this Vulcan variety on the tier. I think lots to look out for here in game 2.
Yeah, you and tier plays specifically lately seems like a good combo
Yeah,
to
I
be in.
guess.
Like, I'm excited to see what this cast can
The
have. Just
you know what? You're welcome, everyone, for the 5-man Fearless that Variety's about to
About
throw
to
out there. You're all welcome.
I'm not. You know what? I'm excited for it. I expect the replays. Yeah, he's
Variety,
look, he's got
0-5 at the end of this
the
game.
sock puppeteer skin,
That's right.
which is a funny one. I would argue.
We've got one of
maybe my
those
second,
around the studio.
Privateer. Yeah, we have Manny somewhere. He used to be right over there. I don't remember
Is
what
it the puppet's name is Manny?
Yeah,
Is that actual lore?
yeah,
His
but like,
name is
yeah,
Manny?
he talks to him.
Which one's Quinn? What's Quinn? Got it. Oh, I see.
Oh, Manny's back there in production.
is that Manny and Quinn. Is that real lore names though, or is that?
Well,
hi-rez
Manny
person?
is actually a
Gotcha.
name.
Oh,
Also,
no!
he died.
Oh no, I was right. I was right. He's 0-1. Oh no. Now look, that's what Mulan brings to the solo lane, right? You get pressure immediately. Not only sustain, but some decent damage. And Aquarius able to take advantage early on here against Variety.
I'm sorry I distracted you with Manny. That's on me.
Well, no, it's the Kings playing, and so normally we're 15 minutes from
From a first
from
blood.
scrapping, right?
I'm actually surprised, and more so, I guess it's this conversation around Mulan, right? Because I think the desk had mentioned it. Really good conversation point, which is that Mulan is very rarely seen outside of the solo lane.
Right.
But Sam for soccer used to like playing her around in the jungle every now and then. I think it's only Wrong Yu, I have to double check, who has played her support. Maybe Inbound might have thrown a game out there for there as well. Somebody definitely has, but I know Wrong Yu has. And she never looked terrible. It was just never really great, right? It always looks a little bit better, a little more controlling. You get the farm you need to level up your abilities, get the masteries online. A lot better when you're in solo. The thing that I'm really interested in is how Artio then works in the duo lane, right? Because, I mean, you're still a Guardian, but we've seen a lot of this control typically more, kind of merits itself over to the solo lane. Makes things pretty interesting, pretty fun.
We were talking about the solo lane, but the tier skin, if we do have a chance, I want to take a peek back at
See how it happens.
exactly how Aquarius got that done. At level 2, I don't imagine, it was even level 2 when the fight
Has to hit it
hits
right
it
here,
on this
right?
wave. Yeah, there you go. Man, Variety just tanks up a lot there. And Aquarius on the Mulan, just enough damage. So far from the most riveting first blood, but wave control very important there for Aquarius, and the ability to sustain up and stay relevant in the wave. Maybe a big difference there. So Variety will be fighting at a bit of a discrepancy in that lane. One level down now to Aquarius, 500 or so gold. Almost exactly between Aquarius and Variety. If it's, it's Variety we're talking about here, though, not the type of player I think to just fully let off the gas. I think we'll still see some presence here on this tier, especially come rotation time.
Yeah, and not only that, but I don't think a first blood affects him too heavily. The gold is going to matter, the experience is going to matter for this early game, and maybe any rotations that come through, because it's also affected Twig to a certain extent. But I don't see it really changing much for the Kings' grand strategy. The team as a whole is behind about a first blood bounty, right? So it's just going to be farm game, see what they're able to do. I'm really curious more where their pressure is going to be. You've got a global presence, so it's kind of different from last time. Last time, Netroid's just making insane rotations really early, and they have a lot of really wide, good team fight ultimates for the Kings.
Yep.
This time around, you've got good healing, a good taunt, Shelly kind of made fun of it, but Twig on Erlong, who's surprised? I mean, even here, all you need is a blink taunt and you're set.
I don't know if Kirmi knows that Twig is there. I think Twig somehow avoided view. At any rate, we're 2v2ing over on the right side of the map. Kirmi, the first Windfire wheels of the game, connects onto Variety, a little sustain from the tier. Aquarius used that ultimate to get out. So whether or not Captain Twig was fully spotted out, the 2v2 over in solo doesn't result in much. Couple ultimates get dropped. And itemization-wise, no real surprise score. I believe the majority of the time we see this Mulan Soul Eater, one of those first items that gets picked up. Already have a little sustain in the kit. Able to compound on it quite nicely with that first item.
Twig and Variety skipped a point in their ult. I've been waiting for that diamond to tick up since they've been level 5.
Really?
Neither of them have a point in their ultimates right now. Yeah, he's gone for 3 and the 72 transformations. I was waiting for the taunt. I was wondering where it was, and he didn't have it. It makes a little more sense. Tier, yours is a giant leap. Granted, CC immunity leap, pretty nice to get you out of trouble. Surprised, though, that the taunt wasn't an immediate pickup from Twig. Maybe they weren't expecting to go in for the fight.
Now, if that's me,
Surprise, if I'm honest.
if that's me, it's not an active decision that I've made. I've just accidentally clicked one of my other abilities at level 5. In this case, I'd like to think a bit more active decision-making from Variety and Twig. At
For
level
Variety,
6,
I'm certain.
right.
Twig has 3 points and 72 transformations. That could go either way.
It could go either way. Both players now hitting level 6 will add a point in their ultimate, so just a level later. The only reason we really have a magnifying glass on it is because at level 5, both fought over on the right side of the map. Now, same result, level and ability-wise, ends up getting reached by both Variety and Captain Twig anyway. So decent start for the Valhalla Valkyries over on right with a solo kill from Aquarius. Haven't seen much blue buff pressure one way or another. Just a couple rotations in, 1 or 2 from Kiermi and Captain Twig alike. But it, you know, we talk about now level 6 for Netroid as well and the rotational pressure. It is difficult with a Chernobog because if you are committing to that rotation out, I think you got to be certain that you get something out of it, because otherwise you're giving Wowie free farm time for a good bit over on the left side of the map if Netroid leaves and doesn't get much for it.
Yeah, you have to make sure that it's going to be fruitful for your team.
Wowie drops Tusky, and a little damage makes its way into Wowie. Genetics rotates over towards left, and I guess a gank, technically, from the support for the Camelot Kings, empty-handed, but just making life difficult. And you're happy that you get Tusky out as well. Windfire Wheels from Kiermi onto Variety yet again. This time Variety does have ultimate. Also has a Fearless. We go up and over. No, he'll dash through. Netroid wants to even the numbers here over on the right side of the map, and it's a rotation in and a kill for Netroid. First blood over to the Camelot Kings. And a big Earthshaker from Big Man Tings as well, but Variety is blinked over the wall, gets a pushback onto Kama. And how about that from the Kings? A double kill over on right, rotation from PMT, Netroid as well, a kill and an assist for the Chernobog.
And that's just good play from them. One of the things that Desk brought up, and this is something I think they were a little worried, Ardio's cripple field, how much that was going to potentially affect the team. A lot of movement abilities on the side of the Kings, a lot that could have potentially slowed them down, tricked things up for them, and then you don't get to see any of it there, right? Because with all of that, what you really have is a close gap for Twig, maybe a knockup. Or I'm sorry, no, the knockup's not even there anymore. That one's on me.
Right.
Close gap for Twig.
That's
A
right.
little bit of shielding that can come through, or attack speed that can come through, as well as the pin makes it very easy, the taunt we saw earlier on. But Fearless, absolute control. The same thing, you know, Netroid is going to be able to get into the wall. That cripple field, how great it is for Gamma, it's almost like it's overwhelmed by how much the Kings have because of how difficult it'll be. Mainly Variety, and maybe a sprinkling of Twig in there will be affected by it, but if they focus Gamma out first or just ignore him, it's not going to end up changing too much. So it's going to be difficult, I think, for Gamma to really take advantage of that and make it look as good as it can, especially if the Fearlesses are looking the way that Variety just had them in that last fight. I think it was really good control, first onto Kiermi, then immediately to block off Gamma, having that extra bit of healing, the leap and capability that is his ult. I think that there's going to be a lot of play potential for the Kings, even though there's a little bit that they're going to have to deal with on the other side that makes things difficult.
Yeah, I think this really, I'm thinking now about how difficult the Chernobog ultimate makes things for the Valhalla Valkyries, because clearly Kiermi has wanted to play over on the right side of the map. An early gank that didn't result in anything. Now a second one for Kiermi, another Windfire wheels onto Variety. That's where the Kings, if they're using Netroid's ultimate, have such an advantage. And I guess, again, then what you're really hoping is that your right side can survive if you're the Valkyries, and that Wowie can get some pressure put on the left. But we're splitting hairs. But as of now, the left side tower is weakest for the Valhalla Valkyries instead of what the Camelot Kings have over there. We'll see if that result changes at all throughout the remainder of this laning phase and throughout the game. But for now, the Kings feeling just fine with the way things have gone. We're down a bit in gold now, have taken the lead. Even get the first trebuchet of the game, weaving some damage in to that tier 1 tower over in mid. Comfort pick for Captain Twig. This is why he's hitting his ultimates. Nearly grabs a kill onto Gamma. Big Man Tings was there on the damage follow-up. Sometimes, it's all just about pressure. That's what Twig is able to supply, the greater Scorpion to the Kings.
I'm honestly excited to see Tings on this Vulcan, though, because it's not just Twig. It's Twig, Variety, Genetics to an extent. Like, there's a lot of CC, just enough. Like, we're going to see a lot of these Vulcan ults connect. And so far, that hasn't been enough to get a kill, but it's gotten people incredibly low.
Gore, the Pyromancer literally just spawned. We saw it sprout forth at 9 minutes and 59 seconds, and it has taken 10 seconds later by the Camelot Kings. As on point as you can be, objective-wise, are the Kings. First Pyromancer immediately secured. And that's just, and you know, that's the type of play the Kings make. They put pressure on one of the members and go to the objective on that side of the map. But we did not see this from the Valks in game 1. An answer back on the other side. Gold Fury low, should be taken, and is by the Valks. Netroid in range, Windfire wheels from Kiermi, sets up a kill for Benny Q. And again, I will reiterate, that was missing in game one. The answer back, the proactive plays. The Valk see Pyro go down on right, get a kill and a Gold Fury on left.
Yeah, that's incredible, I think, from the Valkyries there. Not only reading the map, kind of reading the play, right, from the Kings, which is recognizing if they're going for a 10-minute Pyromancer, then you're immediately going to fall back. You've got that gold to spend.
Right.
Back up to base, finish some of your tier 3s, maybe buy some wards, whatever comes with it. You're not making the play they made last time where it's Pyromancer into a Gold Fury every time. Instead, you're going to be falling back, whether it's the jungle buffs or whatever. So you're guaranteed either the Fury or a fight, and they got the Fury, and I guess technically a fight with a win on top of it. So a nice little kill for them, plus being able to even out the gold. I mean, I think that was really, really well played by the Valkyries.
So pressure onto Aquarius now. No Mulan ultimate. Aquarius spent that a moment ago. So it is just a rundown from the Camelot Kings. And a blue buff dropped and picked up by Variety. So at least a successful invade there for the Kings that you would have loved to kill onto Aquarius. And largely, the scales have now evened over on the right side of the map. Variety even just a bit ahead, XP per minute about 10 or so ahead of where Aquarius is, though still 400 gold down. You can thank First Blood Bounty for that. But as far as keeping things stable, Variety's done a really nice job against an otherwise very difficult lane opponent in the Mulan. It's starting to be rotation time, though, from these solo laners, and that's where the tier makes his money. Aggressive dash in from Kirmi to avoid the root. Netrioid will not take the ultimate over towards mid, but wow, he steps forward! He thought he had maybe pulled one over on a Netrioid, but instead Wowie now relying on the minions to stay alive. It's either going to be Twig or Netrioid here. And call it a bait and switch. There it is, and it's Big Man Tings who finishes off the kill. Nice double root, though, and damage from Benny Q. It's now been turned around. The Kings get the first kill, but the Valhalla Valkyries sniffing out the second in this fight. Good sustain from Captain Twig. Called out, though, by Aquarius.
And that's going to be some clean kills, but Netroid's still able to get another one. 2 for 1. The Kings are looking for more.
Uh-oh, Genetics now jumped on by the Valkyries.
Good
Sustainy enough. Dashes right on through. Ends up being 2 for 1 for the Camelot Kings. Could get worse, though, because over the wall goes Variety. And that is what Tier does best. Shows up out of nowhere and keeps the fight going. Aquarius will fall to Netrioid. And the Kings with another. And it's one after another. These reinitiations in this fight. And ultimately, Variety seals the deal, drops the Mulan, and the Kings come out ahead.
It's always the re-engage that you have to be worried about. Variety just brings so much to the table. I mean, at this point, Tings is bringing a lot to the table.
Yep.
And that one ends up extended being, what, 4 for 1 overall in favor of the Kings? I mean, just really well engaged and then well re-engaged and then well re-engaged again. I think just being able to chase it down, all kind of starting, culminating over in the left side, but you get Netrioid out barely alive with a couple of kills under his belt. Tings is able to get some. And you also have the great taunt, great fearless from Variety and Twig. I think we're seeing what is going to make this team fight not impossible for the Valkyries, but the hardest thing to deal with for them is strictly in those moments. How do you slow this down? How do you deal with things like that? And a lot of it is just going to have to be, not, you had mentioned a kind of proactive play, but I think like being the ones who are dictating the fight immediately, getting rid of Variety or forcing him to use that utility, not to engage, but to disengage. Get him out of there super early on, and then try to chase people down. But it's so difficult because, again, unless that cripple field comes down, unless Aquarius is able to grab them, maybe a root from Biniku or a stun from Wowie when the ult is up, there's not a whole ton of CC from the Valkyries that's easily reliable.
I'm still kind of scratching my head what happened with Wowie and Netrioid at the beginning of that last fight. Because it looked like Net was going to use the ultimate to rotate into mid where that fight was happening. And then we pan back to left, and Wowie is just getting mauled on the way down. He used Tusky. Guess Netrioid might have popped the beads when Tusky came out. Ended up not being lopsided at all, where Wowie had maybe the moment of initiation advantage. And Netrioid was looking towards mid, but did not end up that way, and Big Man Tings with a nice little spike in that previous fight. Level 15 to the 14 of Benny Q. Talked a lot about Flat Pen and maybe how it feels a bit better in the current state of SMITE. Benny Q agrees. 3 Flat Pen items right away.
Yeah, a lot of buffs to those.
Yep, Divine Ruin, Spear of Desolation, Spear of the Magus. On the flip side, we're doing some reading if we're big man Ting, stacking up the Warlock stack, Book of Thoth, and then Soul Reaver after the fact. This is the last trade we saw. I don't know if Netrioid is going to go in. He does. Onto the wall he
Terra's
goes.
here.
Netrioid should die. Gotta die, right? Both actives get used, and there goes Net to the hands of Benny Q. But that has bought time for the Camelot Kings to rotate in. Kiri's got to use the beads. A taunt out from Captain Twig has slowed down the disengage from the Valhalla Valkyries. Benny Q, hello with the push. And Aquarius with the second. The Valhalla Valkyries are routing the Camelot Kings around the Fury. And it is a fearless, or a Lawbringer rather, out from Variety. That'll be a clean objective to the Valks over on the Oni Fury.
And I have to give a little bit of credit both ways, right? Part of that fight goes the Valks' way because the Kings, that's a little overzealous. Going in with just your Hunter, then Genetics, a very staggered engagement, I think, initially from them. Great play from the Valkyries, though. I mean, hard to underestimate, specifically Beniq. A lot of roots, a lot of damage, the push you called out in the middle of it, a lot of CC that comes down that I thought was going to be a little more difficult to maintain and to land. And yet he's able to not only find it, but get that damage spread out there. Immediately Netrioid gets burned, immediately Tings gets burned. And that makes things so much more manageable once those two are off the table. Tings didn't have his ult going into it. Netrioid kind of lands maybe a little bit early because of the timer on his. So no matter what, it felt like the Kings were not going in the way they envisioned it.
Right.
And so the Valkyries are just able to pick that apart, really tear them up, and get the Fury on top of it. I mean, this is one of the best games that I think we've seen them play all year. Yep. And being able to keep up with it, I think, I was going to say this, until proven otherwise, the Kings are the second best team in the league right now, second only to the Dragons, until we see how this phase starts to shake out. Maybe we're phase 3, of course, where Worlds ends up. But as of right now, they were second to only 1. And so in this spot, for the Valks, especially putting up a fight like this, keeping it as even as it is, this has been a very, very good game for them.
Or every time we talk about the road to Worlds, I always just my brain gets sidetracked.
We're going to be in Arlington, Texas, with fans.
Let me tell you, it is really cool.
SMITE.
Right near where the Dallas Cowboys play. It's an awesome zone out there. Excited to see everyone, and you'd think both of these two teams will be there if they're able to capitalize on a great gear they have set up for themselves. Aquarius will not get out of this one. Mulan ult not there. Now Genetics has kept the fight going on the left side of the jungle. Earthshaker domes Beniq, but the Aegis is there. That'll slow down the damage from reaching the Yu Huang. That'll be a clean pick to the Camelot Kings over on right. Unfortunately for them, though, no Pyromancer to immediately pull.
This is going to be a good look for Variety, though. Nice, clean, fearless on the Beniq. This has been the problem, is that Yu Huang.
Genetics has been burnt down. Is that just Wowie? Yes, it is. It's the Artemis who started to swing and poke damage onto Gamma. It's forced him back. That's big man Tings, a Lawbringer in from Variety. Keeps the chase going. Should be another here for the Camelot Kings. Big man Tings rolling now at 3-1-3. I said no Pyro, but Gore, there is a Fire Giant. Both supports down. Genetics will be back up a bit quicker. The Valhalla Valkyries have to respond.
No ult for Tings, though? I mean, it feels like...
Wow.
You know what? It doesn't even matter. I was going to say, it feels like it's not going to be an easy secure, but yeah, if you kill it fast enough,
man,
you don't have to worry about it.
That is tough. The Valks, I guess, just health-wise, too low to stick around over on right. Mana's not great for Twig, but still enough map pressure from the Camelot Kings. And these are the microscope moments where you can zoom in and we talk about how good the Kings are around objectives, at shot calling. That is a play we say maybe, okay, maybe right after that fight the Kings are saying, let's go back to fire. I don't think that's giving the Kings enough credit. I think that's a Kings play where they say, hey, let's see if we can scrap and get the health bars low enough and then go back to fire.
Yeah,
that's a whole drawn-out play from the Kings. That's tough for the Valkyries. I'd imagine they knew that was going on, but probably didn't have enough health to fight back in.
Good news, again, it comes down to like map state, right? They're not in a terrible position, I think, for this Fire Giant to... I mean, it's going to get a lot of gold for the Kings, right? There's never a way to gloss over it. I think even with the way the fights have been going, you could probably mount something around one of these tier 2s, maybe some of these tier 2s. but it's not a surefire fight. And if things go wrong, I mean, I'm looking at blink in 30 seconds from Twig with ult already back. That combination with Big Man Tings and his ultimate means that someone will probably die. If you can get a pick, anything like that to strip some of these Fire Giants and buy you time, that's going to be an asset.
Here you go. But as always, difficult to fully keep a tier in place. This is where the Valk's got to be careful, though. I mean, you're putting a lot of pressure onto Variety. Variety may be able to stop a back or two, unable to do any of it. But I think maybe low risk play there from the Valkyries. If you get a pick, fantastic, but you're probably not defending your tier 1 on left anyway. Hopefully you weren't defending your tier 2 on left because that decision's been made for you. Decent siege here for the Camelot Kings. Got some good tankiness up front, good range damage, and a trebuchet pushing down right. Tough to say where the Valks are going to draw this line in the sand. Maybe hope that Benny Q can find some poke damage and make your fight easier.
This is
Or
one where,
avoid this.
where it could get awkward because all it takes is a little bit of engage, but Genetics is getting blown up.
Genetics dashed into a trap, and it's got to drop his ultimate. Back away from this fight. Yes, a little sustain in the Camelot Kings.
But is it enough?
Not sure it is enough
Yes.
to get the tier 2 tower down. Maybe likely weren't fighting under the tier 2 tower anyway. Primal Fury is going to be back up. Think back to the first Fire Giant in game 1, though, for the Camelot Kings. Wasn't game-changing, but did allow them some steps forward.
Yeah, very similar to this.
Very similar to this. This one, I'd argue, a bit more game-changing than the first one in game 1, because this is just massive gold swing, whereas last time it was an attempted Phoenix Siege, still some towers left on the map after the Fire Giant. Really good luck for the Camelot Kings. Unfortunately, Trebuchet will not be able to finish off the other tier 2 on right. But it is a quick auto attack away from going down. The Camelot Kings really in a good spot here, should be, as Variety drops, but again, ultimate and potential dash away. So there's lockdown from Kirmi, but just too tanky is Variety.
And not even having to use the ult, right? Keeps the CC immunity, whether it's for engage or disengage a little bit later, that's actually massive. Doesn't burn the beads, doesn't burn the blink. It's going to be Gamma going in.
Gamma wants to fight against Variety, but Variety dodges out so much of the damage from Benny Q. Dueling Dragons pokes out Captain Twig. As Metroid has taken some chunk damage as well. Variety is re-engaged. You thought he was out of the fight, and the Valks did as well, but here he is. And there they go. Netroid with a double kill. Big Man Tings with the third. Might just be the final fight of the game now at 23 minutes. The Camelot Kings and a triple the Netroid. Benny Q drops as well. And that's your Dia side at 23 minutes, and the Kings have eyes on the mid lane.
I mean, look, that one, again, just clean, re-engage, the team rotation. It's one thing, the Valks just commit so heavily to Variety there that it makes things a little, I want to say, too easy for them, for the Kings to just kind of regroup, come back in. Variety's super tanky, Genetics is super tanky. They had, at the time, a little bit of that FG health and sustain in their favor, plus the Terra sustain that you were going to get from the ult from Genetics. I think that's just well played. And unfortunately for the Valkyries, it's very similar to what happened to Genetics in mid lane. They dashed forward, and it was into a trap, right? They were waiting for him, the Kings were able to spring it, and things just fell apart.
That's a game where there's a lot of baiting in from the Kings, whether it was Genetics, whether it was Variety. It was a lot of, I'm going to get real low on this tank. We're going to force some ultimates, force some abilities out of you. What do we say this thing's name was?
It's Manny.
Again.
That in-game, that skin, he calls his puppet Manny.
Okay, but lore-wise, in lore.
In lore, like Tyr's actual, I don't think he named his gauntlet.
Right, doesn't have a puppet.
And most, do you know how he lost his right hand?
I don't, but I'll pass the talking puppet to you.
Puppet to me. First off, we got this from someone who won, I believe, the cosplay contest. I think that's that in the
well, thank you,
Ho-Yibo,
and your cosplays
way
awesome.
back when.
Yeah.
They were amazing.
Yeah.
But no, he put his hand in Fenrir's mouth because it was the only way they could convince Fenrir to allow them to chain him up because it had been prophesized that he would bring about Ragnarok, kill Odin, things like that. And then when the chains bound Fenrir, he bit Tyr's hands off because like that wasn't cool, dude.
Or
and then now he wears a gauntlet.
Fenrir ate like a piece of chocolate on the ground, and Tyr was reaching his hand in there to try to get it out. And that's like, all dog owners know what that's about. You know what I mean? You kind of.
It wasn't that, but sure.
I like that idea. Maybe a little bit better. I don't think the history books wrote about Fenrir eating chocolate, anything like that. Camelot Kings look good here in their first set of the phase. They will take it 2-0 over the Valhalla Valkyries, and we will head back to the desk for the breakdown.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dave and Gore. Game number 2 and the set now to the Camelot Kings. And maybe at least some expectations of the fans from home coming in here. This is the number 2 Camelot Kings. They seated second, at least at the Masters land. Valhalla Valkyries still sitting around that 7th, 8th place whenever they were coming in through that one. So, top seeded team finding win. Maybe not a big surprise, but at least out of the Valhalla Valkyries, it's something we talked about in game number 1, something we saw still expedite at least in game number 2, is still that early game play that they were able to really capitalize on. Sure had a couple of little faults in the early stage, but this Valkyries team, they're on the cusp end of being able to find those big wins.
Yeah, and that's the issue, right? This is phase 3, as I've said time and time again. It's great to be close, but this is the game time, right? This is where you have to make those adjustments and really get to that right over the cusp, if you will, or overflowing. I don't know how the cusp would be passed up, but they need to go a little bit higher, despite the fact that, it was a good early game. I mean, the Chernobog, the one time where Netroid actually just flew into gold 1v5, I was like, excuse me? Like, I get it was for the vision and you want to try and delay the objective. That was the fight where I was like, oh, the Valks are looking real good, but I understand the playmaking. Then after that fight, it was pretty much all Kings the rest of the set. Tings was doing huge damage. It was pretty much just the exact play style you would expect from the Kings, right? If you can't get off their rhythm, they're going to roll through the late game as they always do, and then it gets really difficult to end at that point.
Yeah, Camelot Kings known for their objective play for these late game team fights. We talked to them time and time, and we sat down with them at least earlier on in the week for the media day when they were here, and Captain Twig went on note to apologize to the fans and saying, I know that we play for these late games. I know that we wait, 15, 20 minutes, probably don't get kills. I'm sorry, but I'm also not sorry because it's just we're just good at doing it, and we're just going to keep doing that. And speaking of, we do have a post-game interview standing by with the Camelot Kings, so we'll go ahead and throw it over that way.
That's right. I'm standing here. I got Twig right next to me. And Twig, I came to you specifically because there was a period where we were watching you guys. It was a level 5 fight in solo in game 2. Variety and you didn't have your ult. And when we went and looked at the levels, like you were playing tier, Variety kind of makes sense, maybe not going to throw a point over there. I was curious, did you accidentally throw a 3rd point into 72 transformations, or was that on purpose?
I did say it in the game. I did. We saw Mulan didn't have beads, right? Because I think she went TP or Blink. So I thought maybe we could one-shot her in a Fearless, and it wasn't even close. If I put 3 points in the Mink, but it wasn't close.
I was kind of hoping that it was going to be like we'd get like the player comms from that moment and just be you kind of cursing like, okay, yeah, so I goofed this one up. No, it was planned, just didn't quite go the way you wanted it to. I do want to ask though, the Valks, a team that has really been on, I want to say the rise, like they've grown so much from when they first came in. A couple of these games for a long time, a lot longer than it used to be, very close. How did it feel going into that one? I think it was specifically like one big fight that broke it out for you guys and got you the massive lead into like a Fire Giant. What was it like going up against them so even?
I think we kind of heard, and I kind of expected them to be on good form. They kind of had a good ending to the last split and a good kind of set against Titans in the last tournament. So, and I think they are in good form. I think maybe us 2-0ing them doesn't really mean anything too deep. That they'll probably win some games in this full split coming up. So yeah, I mean. We just played, I think, our average. I think we didn't play bad or particularly super well. We just played our average, and I'm hoping for more of that in the future weeks.
Well, I'm sure everybody's excited to continue watching you guys grow and watching what you're going to be capable of, not only here for Phase 3, but the playoffs, and of course the road to Worlds. That's going to do it for us here, at least in the booth, so we'll kick it back to the desk to close out the day.
Yeah, thanks so much, Gore, and to Captain Twig for that post-game interview. And if Captain Twig is saying that was us playing at our average, that's still a bit scary considering their average was still pretty good. Still can continue moving on up and ahead, but finding that first win for themselves in the column, at least in week number 1 of Phase 3, is definitely a great start for this team. Remember, it's a doubleheader all the way through for the double round robin, at least the least, which means they're going to be playing against the Valkyries again, so Valkyries have some time to be able to work around some of the kinks at least that they need to be able to fight up against the Camelot Kings the next time through. And both these teams continue to work on improving it as we go throughout. Some big plays out of here. Big Man Tings had some nice ultimates on this Vulcan as the game was going through. Gamma had some strong plays, at least throughout on the RDO in the early stage of the game. That one maybe not as negative as it went through, but overall, impressive performance for both these teams.
Yeah, I actually did. I'm really enjoying the RDO support because I feel like it's just so annoying when you draft these picks like, the Terra, for example. You have to dash into the Monolith, but you can't really do that because there's a cripple field in play. Same with like Captain Twig, that sort of thing. So props to Gamma for making that call. This was such a sweet block by Twig. I was just telling you in the green room about this. I was like, man, he just dashed right in front of the bow and didn't let Aquarius zoom out of there because it could have been some trouble. That gank might have went the wrong way. And you're right to highlight again. BMT. I saw a couple ult from downtown. Most of them got Aegis, but whenever they did land, just doing so much damage. Feels good to be back in a Vulcan meta. You know, I don't know if we've ever been in a Vulcan meta actually, but the big ultimates, and that's all I'm really here for. Juke shoes and big numbers. That's what Vulcan brings, and I'm excited to see it.
I'm trying to think. I think the last time that we saw like a Vulcan meta was when his meatball had a mini stun on it at the very beginning. And then once that got nerfed, we stopped seeing the Vulcan nearly as consistently. A couple of players that brought him out here and there throughout time. You know, think back to like Snoopy, Pretty Prime, players like that used to bring that god out every so often, but then he kind of fell away. Then we'd see shines of light of him here and there, you know, a pocket pick. But now that we're kind of coming back in this Vulcan meta, it could be a very fun. I personally love Vulcan. I love watching Vulcan, seeing those ultimates go max range, do 1600 plus damage, one-shotting squishy targets. A lot of fun for me to watch, but that's just because I've been a Vulcan fan since day one.
I mean, yeah, we just like big numbers, right? It's like, are we
big numbers make brain go burr.
Yeah, I mean that I didn't know how to put my thoughts into words, but you did it for me. So I like seeing, you know, the massive range ultimates, and it's not an easy ability to hit. It's very slow and clunky, so it really does rely on your teammates. So there's a lot of team play involved. But hey, I'm sending this to the Gold Fury pit. I'm at my purple buff. You better go CC them in the big circle, because if not, we're just wasting so much. And so it does take a lot to actually make this pick work as well.
And I will say, even seeing some of the synergy just in the first week of competitive play with this guy, I mean, we look back to the Dragons set earlier on where PBM is blinking into the backline to find a stun cripple just to make sure that they are locking down. And that's before the Vulcan ult is even fired off. PBM is saying, I'm going to blink to the backline. Right as that blink goes through, you see Pagon trust that ultimate to go through. We're seeing it in this game as well. Let's take a look at the schedule, though, because we are now done with our second day of week number 1, which means we have one more day left to go. Some great sets today between the Dragons and the Scarabs and the Kings and the Valkyries, both those going 2-0 to the Dragons and Kings respectively. And then tomorrow, tune in. Atlantis Leviathans, Tartarus Titans to open the day. Olympus Bolts and Scarabs right in the middle, and sandwiched between that now with the Jade Dragons and Camelot Kings. So the two teams that won today, the number 1 and 2 from Masters respectively for the Dragons and the Kings to face off again in our very first week. That is sure to be probably the highlight match of the week, Charlie.
But it is going to be the 11 a.m. Leviathan, so that's going to be that's the early morning curse there for them. I'm certainly excited to see the full. It's been a while since we have 3 SPL games in one day for your viewing pleasure, but also for our casting pleasure, and then also desking pleasure, because we do both of those things.
Yeah, we do have to do both. Well, you didn't do both today. You only
I've
desk
been a
today.
desky boy. This seat has only belonged to me today.
That has been your exclusive seat, and luckily, at least for the fans at home, they'll have 3 sets tomorrow, as you said, as we showed there on the schedule at the very least. So make sure that you are tuning in for those ones to kind of round out week number 1 of the SPL. It feels so good to be back now in phase number 3, getting ready for the road to Worlds. It's been 5-6 weeks since we've gotten to see some real competitive action, so being able to jump right back into the fray with all these teams, with all these matchups, has been such a great experience, Charlie.
Are you implying the Atlantis Leviathan, the Advantage Leviathan's Invitational wasn't competitive action?
It was competitive, but not quite what we're seeing, at least in Phase 3 of the SMITE Pro League. So make sure that you tune in 11 a.m. Eastern tomorrow as we kick off day number 3 of Week 1. On behalf of myself, Charlie, Cast Production, all of everyone behind the scenes, thanks for watching. We'll see you tomorrow at 11.